There comes a moment when silence says more than words ever could. It's not the kind of silence that begs to be broken, it's the kind that hums with meaning, heavy and absolute. It happens quietly, without announcement. One day you wake up, and you realize you don't care enough to argue anymore. You don't chase. You don't explain. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop crafting messages you'll never send. It's not bitterness. It's not pride. It's peace, the kind that comes when you've finally exhausted every ounce of effort trying to make someone understand you. You begin to see things for what they are, not what you hoped they'd be. You remember every time you tried to talk, every time you reached out, and how she shrugged it off like it was nothing. You recall the way she used to test your patience, mistaking your kindness for weakness, your consistency for boredom. And for a while, you blamed yourself for being too soft, too available, too understanding. But then, in the silence, you realize it was never weakness. It was loyalty in the wrong direction. Now she sits with the quiet you left behind. At first, she calls it freedom. She tells herself she's happier without your steady presence, without the man who always understood her even when she didn't deserve it. But as the days turn into weeks, that silence stops feeling like liberation. It starts to echo. It reminds her of the peace you gave her, peace she mistook for control. And now, your absence has weight. It lingers in her thoughts like a shadow that won't fade. Because what she doesn't yet understand is that when a man truly stops caring, he doesn't make noise. He disappears, and the silence becomes deafening. She stares at her phone longer than she admits. Every few hours, she scrolls through her messages, pretending she's just checking the time. She tells herself she doesn't care, that she's over it, but deep down she's waiting for that familiar name to light up her screen again. The one that used to bring calm to her chaos. But it never comes. And it's that absence, that deliberate quiet, that starts to eat at her in places she thought were untouchable. She scrolls through old photos, conversations, memories she swore she deleted. She sees the way you used to look at her, not with obsession, but with understanding. You didn't worship her. You saw her. And that's what terrifies her now. Because every new person she meets, every conversation that tries to replace what you had, feels staged and hollow. They say the right things, but they don't feel right. The attention is cheap. The affection is conditional. And the peace she thought she'd find without you is nowhere to be found. She starts to question her own story. The one she told her friends, that you were cold, distant, too calm to care. But calmness looks different when it's gone. What she called disinterest was discipline. What she called dull was stability. Now, your stillness haunts her. It shows up in her mind late at night, when everything else fades. Every laugh she forces online, every post she makes trying to prove she's happy, is a message directed at you, a message she'll never send. Because deep down, she knows you're not watching. You've moved differently. You've grown past needing to be seen. And in that realization, she finally understands the cruel truth: nothing hurts more than being ignored by someone who once understood you completely. Your silence isn't just quiet, it's powerful. It's the kind of silence that reflects, not retreats. It doesn't come from spite, but from clarity. You're not ignoring her, you're finally listening to yourself. For the first time, your energy isn't leaking into arguments or explanations that go nowhere. You've stopped fighting to be understood by someone who was never trying to listen. And in that stillness, something shifts. You begin to see everything differently, every word she twisted, every moment she downplayed, every time she made you feel like peace was boring. You start realizing how much noise she carried into your life, and how calm it feels now that she's gone. But that calm, to her, feels like punishment. She can't comprehend peace that doesn't center around her. She mistakes your stillness for indifference, but it's the opposite. Your silence is loud, it echoes in all the places where your voice used to live. It reminds her of the patience she misused, the security she took for granted. What she once called too quiet now feels like balance she can't recreate. Meanwhile, you're learning how to breathe again. You find beauty in the small things, the sunrise that used to go unnoticed, the quiet nights that once felt empty but now feel full. You're no longer reacting. You're responding to life with intention. And that new version of you, calm, detached, grounded, unnerves her. Because she knows now that she can't reach you anymore. She can't pull emotion from you like she used to. You've outgrown her chaos. You've evolved into stillness. And that stillness has become her storm, because she's finally realizing that peace was never weakness, it was your power all along. She starts to feel it, the loss of control. It doesn't happen all at once, but slowly, like a thread unraveling from the inside out. At first, she tells herself she's fine. She repeats the same lies to her friends, saying you were distant, cold, too serious. But the more she says it, the less she believes it. Because deep down, she knows it wasn't you who changed, it was her ability to manipulate your emotions that disappeared. You've stopped reacting. You've stopped giving her the satisfaction of your attention. And to someone who thrived on control, that's the cruelest punishment of all. She used to know exactly how to pull you in a certain tone, a certain word, a single apology. But now, nothing works. Your calmness feels unreachable. She tries to provoke you, test your silence, maybe even post things just to see if you'll break it. But you don't. And that quiet becomes unbearable for her. Because every time she doesn't hear from you, it reminds her that she's lost the power to affect you. The leash she once held has turned to dust. Your peace confuses her. You're not angry, you're not bitter, you're simply done. That's what shakes her the most. You're not trying to prove anything anymore. You're not waiting for closure or craving revenge. You've just outgrown the game. That realization hits harder than any argument ever could. Because she knows now that she can't win a battle that no longer exists. The battlefield is empty, you've left it behind. And as she watches you move forward in silence, she starts to crumble inside. Not because you hurt her, but because you stopped letting her hurt you. And that, to her, feels like losing everything. It hits her slowly, in flashes, in quiet moments when she least expects it. The realization that you weren't like the rest. You weren't another man trying to impress her, or another distraction she could use to feel desired. You were something steadier, something she didn't know how to handle, a man rooted in peace. You never tried to compete for attention. You didn't chase. You didn't play games. You simply showed up with consistency, and she mistook that calm strength for simplicity. She thought excitement was chaos, that love had to feel like adrenaline. But now, she sees the difference between drama and depth. When she's with other men, the contrast becomes painful. Their energy is loud, their intentions shallow. They crave her body, but not her mind. They talk, but they never listen. The connection always fades as quickly as it begins. She tries to convince herself she's happy, but that hollow feeling only grows stronger. Because nothing compares to the way you made her feel safe without even trying. What she once labeled boring was actually peace. What she called predictable was loyalty. What she dismissed as routine was stability, something she now craves but can't recreate. And while she's busy realizing all this, you're nowhere to be found. You're not watching, not waiting, not even thinking of proving your worth. You've already learned your lesson, love should never require you to lose yourself. Your stillness now stands as a mirror to her chaos, and she finally understands what she lost. You were never too calm, you were in control. You weren't detached, you were disciplined. She thought she'd outgrown you, but the truth is, you were the man she needed to grow into. And now, she's too late. While she's lost in her confusion, you've stepped into a different world, one that doesn't revolve around pain, validation, or needing to be understood. You've started rebuilding yourself piece by piece, quietly, deliberately. There's no dramatic comeback, no grand announcement. Just steady growth. You wake up earlier, breathe deeper, move differently. The weight you used to carry, her moods, her silence, her chaos, it's gone. You no longer need her to see your worth. You finally see it yourself. You're not angry anymore. You're calm in a way that unsettles those who once thrived on your emotions. You don't need to explain why you left, because peace doesn't need justification. You're learning that silence isn't empty, it's full of everything that used to drain you. You've replaced overthinking with observation, reaction with patience. And in that transformation, you've become something stronger, not hardened, but grounded. She might think you've forgotten her, but the truth is, you've simply remembered yourself. You've stopped letting the past define your value. You're no longer the man who begged to be understood. You've become the man who no longer needs to be. There's power in that shift, quiet, steady power that doesn't shout or seek validation. Now, your focus is on purpose, on growth, on peace, on becoming. You've learned that self-control is the loudest form of strength. Your silence isn't a weapon, it's protection. It's not avoidance, it's alignment. You've finally learned the truth that most never do. When you stop chasing what breaks your peace, you start attracting what feeds your soul. You didn't walk away to hurt her. You walked away to heal you. And that's the kind of healing that turns a man into something unshakable. Time passes, and the noise around her begins to fade. The friends who cheered her on have grown silent. The attention that once kept her distracted no longer fills the emptiness. She starts to feel the stillness you once carried, the one she couldn't understand when you were near. For the first time, she begins to sit with her own thoughts, and they're not kind. The truth creeps in slowly, through quiet memories and sleepless nights. She remembers the way you used to listen when no one else did, how your presence made her feel safe even when she pretended she didn't need it. Now, that safety is gone, replaced by the echo of her own choices. Every man she meets feels like a reflection of what she lost. They talk about themselves too much. They compete for her attention but never earn her trust. They chase her body but ignore her silence. And in every empty conversation, she hears your absence louder. She realizes now that you weren't trying to control her, you were trying to guide her towards something real. But she wasn't ready for that kind of love. She confused peace with boredom and maturity with indifference. Now, her reflection hurts to look at. The same traits she once mocked in you, your patience, your logic, your calmness, are the qualities she's desperate to find again. She begins to understand that your silence wasn't cruelty. It was the lesson. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because you finally knew your worth. And now, in your absence, she's finally facing the truth you always knew: losing a man who chooses peace over chaos isn't just heartbreak, it's awakening. Time has a way of softening the noise but sharpening the truth. As the months drift by, she starts to see things she refused to before. The excitement that once surrounded her life has turned into repetition, the same people, the same shallow laughter, the same empty validation. And in the quiet spaces between those moments, she thinks of you. Not with anger, not even with longing, but with a kind of ache that sits deep in the chest, the ache of realizing she let something real slip away. She scrolls through her feed, sees your name now and then, not because you're trying to be seen, but because your peace draws attention. You look lighter, more focused, untouchable in a way that's new. You've mastered what she couldn't: stillness. You're not trying to prove anything, not posting to remind the world you've moved on. You just exist, fully, freely. That kind of silence has its own gravity. People notice it without you saying a word. What she once called detachment now looks like strength. What she thought was coldness now feels like wisdom. Because distance, over time, reveals character, and yours speaks volumes. She realizes now that you didn't walk away to punish her. You walked away because your soul was tired of being misunderstood. Love without respect becomes bondage, and peace without boundaries becomes exhaustion. You've become something she never expected: the man who doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't seek revenge. The man who simply moves forward. And that unsettles her more than any words ever could. Because she knows now no woman truly forgets the man who found peace without needing her permission. And that peace will haunt her longer than any goodbye. There comes a night when everything goes quiet. The noise, the pride, the endless distractions, all of it fades until there's nothing left but her and the truth she's been running from. She sits alone, scrolling through memories she swore she'd forgotten, hearing your voice in fragments, feeling the absence she used to call freedom. The silence she once celebrated now feels heavy, almost suffocating. Because now, she understands it wasn't your presence that weighed on her, it was her own inability to match your peace. She'll remember how patient you were, how you never tried to control her, how you loved her with a calm that frightened her because it required no performance. You never shouted. You never begged. You just cared, quietly, consistently. And when that stopped, it wasn't out of anger. It was acceptance. You didn't stop loving her, you stopped trying to convince her that you did. There's a difference, and that difference breaks her. She'll replay the moments she thought she won, the arguments where you walked away, the times she believed her silence hurt you. Now she realizes those were the moments you were letting go. Not out of defeat, but out of growth. You didn't lose the battle, you outgrew the war. And as she finally sees that truth, you're already gone, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, completely. You've turned your pain into peace, your wounds into wisdom. She will spend years searching for the same calm you learned to live in. And every man who follows will feel like an echo of what she lost. Because when a man masters his peace, he becomes unforgettable. Not because of what he gave, but because of what he no longer needs.